Aside from the white grubs, the larvae of scarab beetles, the other group of beetles that are found in turfgrass are what we call billbugs. These are a type of weevil, specifically grass-feeding weevils. They're in the genus Spinophorus. There are many kinds of weevils, of course. It's the largest family of insects on the planet, the largest family of anything on the planet. But the billbugs are strictly grass-feeding species. And the adults are insects of moderate size, some sort of gray or nearly black in terms of coloration. They have dimple markings, but aren't generally brightly colored. The two species that primarily occur regionally are the Rocky Mountain billbug and the bluegrass billbug. They are going to have complete metamorphosis, similar to that of any kind of beetle, which will start with an egg. There'll be progressively larval stages of larvae that are feeding on the plant. They will pupate and then again become an adult. 1 year life cycle is the norm. Now, the billbugs, being a weevil, have the mouthparts tipping the snout. So they have chewing mouthparts at the tip of that snout off the front, and they use that to cut into plant. And they cut into the base of a grass plant for the purpose of laying an egg. So in this case, we see an egg of a billbug that has been laid inside a grass stem, and the egg was inserted after a little pit had been chewed by the mouth parts. Young billbug larvae develop within the plant, so when they're very small, they will be feeding internally within the plant, riddling the interior of the plant and killing it. And notice in this picture, and I'm going to show this a couple of times, the material that's associated with this feeding. It's kind of a sawdust, granular type of material that's in there around where they're feeding. And this is a diagnostic feature we'll come back to with billbug damage. Now, this kind of feeding, plus later when they feed on the roots, can cause injury that might be very similar to that you might see with several other kinds of insects on turfgrass, such as white grubs. You might get wilting or patchy areas where the grass has been killed. One way to try to figure out if it's billbugs is to go to the affected area and do a little tug test, like just grab some and see if it pulls away and breaks. And it could break if it was damaged by various kinds of fungal diseases as well. But if larvae have been chewing within the plant and riddling the interior part of the plant, it will break away clean from there. And then when you look at it, when you look at the area where it broke, then you should be able to see evidence of chewing. You'll see the frass, you'll see the excrement that it produced within the tunneled grass stem. So that would be one way to diagnose a billbug injury. This frass coming back, the excrement they produce, is something that is pretty distinctive. It's again more granular, more sawdust-like than you're going to see with any other kind of insect associated with turfgrass. So you might see the larva itself, but you also might see this kind of unusual granular sawdust-like material in the feeding site. Now, they are feeding originally in the grass plant, but as they get too big, they do move into the root zone. So then you'll have the older billbug larvae occurring as root feeders. So they'll be in the same site as a white grub would be, and you might see them together. That's not at all uncommon, and they look fairly similar to some degree, but also are quite easily distinguished. So the most obvious feature separating a billbug larva from a white grub larva would be the presence of legs. Billbugs, a type of weevil, have no legs. No weevil larvae have legs, whereas white grubs have quite prominent legs that they use to help dig their way through the soil. But both have a dark head capsule and strong jaws that they use to chew into the plant or into the roots or through the roots. So, diagnosing billbug damage, there'll be a set of features that might be useful for separating this from, say, a white grub. Turfgrass will have appearance of drought stress, and it may be quite patchy, depending on how the adults were laying their eggs. But when pulled, it will break at the crown of the plant, because that's where the insect larvae have been feeding, and then you can look at the area where it broke, see that it has been internally tunneled, and see this kind of frass that they have produced. It is a very distinctive granular material that is unique and not produced by any other insect. So that alone would be a diagnostic feature that you could use to diagnose billbug injury. Now, the two species that are present in the region primarily are the bluegrass billbug and the Rocky Mountain billbug. The latter is a little bit bigger and a little bit more prominently marked. It's got these little yellow, golden double markings on the back of the wing, but neither of them are very obvious insects. You'll normally see them when they're crawling across a sidewalk. Both of them or any kind of billbug is usually seen walking across a sidewalk, driveway, something like that. If you disturb them, they'll usually pull on their legs and play dead. Basic life history of billbugs is all species are going to have a 1-year life cycle, so all stages will be completed in a single year. However, there are differences in terms of when the stages occur. The bluegrass billbug, the dominant species you find in the eastern half of North America, has a life cycle that is synchronized so that all the adults, all the insects overwinter solely as an adult stage. That is more complicated with the Rocky Mountain billbug, which overwinters in mixture of stages. So you have adults that are overwintering and you have some larvae that are overwintering. So there's no distinct generations with the latter species, whereas things are quite synchronized with the former. There are possibly some other billbugs that could occur, usually in the more warmer areas. One called the hunting billbug and one called the phoenix billbug are also associated with turfgrass. So there are several kinds of billbugs that may be found in turfgrass settings, but bluegrass billbug, Rocky Mountain billbug are usually what you're going to see. Now, for managing billbugs, a couple of different things could be considered. There are some cultural controls. One is that there are resistant cultivars. There are cultivars of bluegrass that are much more tolerant to billbug than are others. Also, some grasses are less susceptible, and particularly if you have endophytes associated with them, they can become resistant to billbug. So endophyte-enhanced perennial ryegrass, which is sometimes found in turfgrass mixtures or can be overseeded and introduced into a site, can introduce a billbug resistant kind of cultivar. Endophytes, by the way, I should probably discuss this a little bit. Endophytes are fungi that develop within plants and have a mutual relationship with the plant. In the case of the endophytes in turfgrass, they do confer some protection against various kinds of animals that might be feeding on them, and then the plant houses and nourishes these endophytes. So you can sometimes buy perennial ryegrass, and often it will say if it has endophytes in it or not. But perennial ryegrass introduced into a lawn will introduce a species of grass that billbugs will not be able to develop in successfully. And also, and this goes with any kind of turfgrass insect, appropriate culture after the insect is present and done some damage can allow the plants to better recover. There are some biological controls. The biological control that would be used for billbugs would be these insect parasitic nematodes. Pretty much any of the insect parasitic nematodes work for the billbugs. Unlike white grubs, we have to be a little more specific in terms of what we have, but both the two common genera of the insect parasitic nematodes that are commercially available will usually work pretty well on billbugs. And there are then also chemical controls. These are applied in different strategies. One strategy would be to have an insecticide that is applied to the surface of a lawn area, and its target would be the adults. The other approach would be to get an insecticide that would be applied to the soil, that would have some systemic activity, that would allow some ability to control an insect that's inside the plant, as well as perhaps targeting some adults. With the bluegrass billbug, with its very synchronized life cycle, it is often fairly easy to appropriately time a treatment for that, so that all the adults are out and you can get them before they're laying eggs. Less so for species that have a life cycle that overlaps a lot more. Now, I hate to perhaps put this off in terms of not completely discussing this, but billbugs are not a huge problem in this region. And an excellent publication that summarizes all these strategies on billbugs that I would recommend that you do look at is this Purdue University publication on managing turfgrass billbugs. It talks about the various strategies in terms of whether you go after adults or early stage larvae or try a rescue treatment, and the different specific products that are currently available for each of those approaches. So strategy 1 would be targeting the adults before they're laying eggs. Strategy 2 would be have an insecticide at the time when you have early larval development, and strategy 3 would be try to recover from an existing infestation that you caught when damage is already in progress. Anyway, excellent publication, probably the best, at least the best I could find at present, to give you a little more information on how to better manage billbugs.